everybody?
You normally say this is Sam.
Oh,
You normally say this is Sam.
I do?
Oh, I don't know. What do we do?
remember.
Let's start over. Go ahead.
What's up, everybody? This is Pastor Sam.
And this is Danny.
And together we are exploring the what?
A big story.
Big story. Yeah, we're in this.
Not a small one.
Not a small one. No,
Big
no,
one.
It's a big one. This
It's
is
a grand
the
story.
The story.
Why didn't we call it the grand story? Just kidding.
I don't know, because Mia is the one who put titles on things, you know what I'm saying? So don't blame me for stuff like that.
No. But we're in the story, right? And you started us up. We're looking at we're looking at the whole narrative from Genesis to Jesus. I like that.
Yeah, and you know the purpose has been that we have tried to, just give this overall arching story so that people would understand. And I even talked about a few Sundays ago, like there's a lot of us don't really understand the importance of the Old Testament, or thought that the Old Testament doesn't matter, and that's not true.
Yeah, and I think understanding taking a big story that's the Bible, right? Which is it's a big story, but it's one story, but it's so many books, and how you pull that thread and show people the connection from that Jesus all the way from Genesis to Revelation, not just Easter, we're gonna Easter time, but the whole story, and not to see it as a section of books that you read, but one collective story. And I think once you have that landscape down, I think you have some markers as you go along to help connect you and bring you back to the story, because there is a lot of things happening in the Old Testament that is kind of like you would say not necessarily relevant, but it's good history. It's a good thing to know. That's why when you read the Bible, you have to understand the context of what you're reading, right? So it's interesting that. So let's.
Someone asked me. So I'll say this. Someone asked me the other day, Pastor Sam, isn't calling the Bible a story diminishing the book? And I was like, well, you hear that way because you think it's diminishing, because you have been taught that the Bible are different books, not a concise story, the story of God, right? Because we've been told that the Bible has how many books?
66.
66. And so then each book,
is that right?
I don't know.
I think it is.
How many authors? And then we say like they have different authors. So like it can't be one story if there's so many books and so many authors, right? What people fail to understand is the Bible has one author.
It's one, yes, and it's
not
God.
many. One author is God,
Yep.
and that author uses human agency in order to bring about what he wants through the Holy Spirit. So, I think that's an important thing to say.
And with every story, there's drama, right? There's a lot of drama.
There's tension. There's drama.
That makes it a great story to read, and it's a love story. I've always heard that the Bible is a love story, right? It's about God redemption, and this specific session we're talking about, why did God start over, right? Why did He start over? But and this big idea that God judges evil. He never abandons the rescue plan. The flood that we're going to be talking, we're focusing more on Noah, right, and the flood in there. And I thought your sermon was really great. You titled "The Flood of Grace," right?
Yes.
And talk to me about how you came to that title.
Well, it's simple for me. I just think that like a lot of us see the flood as a judgment
thing. Yes.
It's a judgment. It's God bringing down the house. People have been making fun for using this word all the time. Like God's giving us a spanking. It's like, oh, God is mad at them. So this is not. This is actually God trying to protect us and trying to keep us safe and sound. So it is not. It is an act of grace towards wrecked people. Right?
Yeah, it is. It's both judgment and it's also mercy.
Sure.
And that's kind of what. And even the ark points forward to an even greater rescue, right?
Yes.
And I think that's a piece. Like a lot of times when people read parts of the Bible like this, we fail to recognize that there's a bigger thing happening. There's the immediate thing that God is working through, and God is kind of working towards, but there's an ultimate goal that He's also keeping at the forefront of the mind. Like if you think about it, He's never lost that perspective, but humanity has lost that perspective. We've lost that perspective even when we read it at times, which we kind of ask, like if God is loving, right? One of the questions, like, why even send the flood at all?
Yeah, and you're talking about the ark. I was just thinking, a lot of people has this misunderstanding of the ark. The ark saves Noah from a flood. That's what we say.
Yeah.
But the ark, in a sense, cannot save humanity itself.
No.
right? But it can save this guy. But which I think the ark is kind of a preparation for us for something greater that God's gonna do, and we can talk about more about that maybe later on. But the ark is not another boat. It's not not protecting from the flood. It's not a reset. It is a person in the end of it all. Right? It's pointing to what you're saying. It's pointing to something greater. It's something that will protect us from the flood of sin, which is Jesus Himself. So we can talk about that later on. But
Yeah. But let's just dump in. Let's just dive in.
You're dumping no hand.
Dumping a lot of flood. But I mean, I think we want to answer a couple questions in this session, right? I think the first question is, why judgment and mercy? The second, why save Noah instead of restarting entirely? And which you kind of touched on, what does the ark really mean? And I think that's kind of what we're gonna be diving into. So talk to me about the first one.
So I mean, there's a reason why the story of Noah sticks with us, right? Even people who are not Christians know the story.
Yeah, I think
they know the flood, they know the ark, they know the rainbow, they know the animals.
I'm pretty sure every religion or every type of thing has some type of flood story or flood narrative in there.
You're correct.
Right?
Yeah. But I think, beneath the whole thing, there's some familiar questions that many people asks. I think, and we're gonna focus on the ones you said it, but I asked the questions like, why does this story feel both harsh and hopeful at the same time? And I think this is some of the things that people ask. Why it feels so harsh, doesn't it? God flooding and killing everybody.
It does, and the floods. It makes people uncomfortable because, we tend to just look at the judgment of it, right? Because we see it that way, but as we already talked about, is also God's mercy at the time, and then you have to ask the question: well, why? Why even send the flood at all? Why destroy the world instead of fixing it? Right? If you're God, then fix the thing, right? Why? And if he's going to start over, why not just reset completely? Why not just clear the whole chessboard and build a new one?
And another question people ask all the time is: if God is good, why judge the world?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's, I think, one of the, people wrestle with that often. If God is good, why doesn't He do something that we think is different? And the same thing is, if God is merciful, why not simply wipe the slate clean and start over completely, which is kind of what this is about, in a sense.
I think in order for us to understand what God is doing in that moment, we have to understand the why, right? Why did judgment come? And Genesis 6:5 tells us that humanity's thoughts was what? Continually evil.
Well, let me read that verse.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Not only verse 5 but 12, just 5 and 12. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord regretted that He made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. And then verse 12 says this: and God saw that the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all flesh had corrupted their ways on the earth. And God said to Noah, I have determined to make end of all flesh, for the earth is filled with violence through them. Behold, I will destroy them with the earth. And I'm like, there's a reason why God took some action there. And the action is what?
Well, he has to judge humanity, and if God is a good God, and he has to be reliable in that standpoint. So the consequence of sin, as we saw in the garden, like there's a consequence for our actions, right?
Sure.
And God isn't like losing. So the idea behind God is He isn't losing patience with humanity, right? Some could see it that way. Some could see it like, well, oh man, these people they're just never gonna get it. I'm going to destroy the whole thing. I'm just gonna wipe them out. It's not that. He's confronting a world that is destroying themselves.
But here's the thing, though. We don't want God to do that. We want God to overlook evil. Isn't that what? That's what we want God to do, though. Like, right? Why can't God just overlook evil?
Well, that's an interesting question. Why focus so much on the thought of why is God judging the world, but versus why is there so much evil in the world?
Sure.
I think that's. I mean, we to your point, we don't look at it that way.
No.
But instead of talking about it, God is actually doing something about it.
Well, overlooking evil doesn't heal the world.
No.
Doesn't bring. Doesn't fix anything, right? It allows the evil to keep being destroyed, to keep destroying it. So a lot of us, we want the evil to be fixed in the world, but we don't want to address the evil within, right?
Yeah.
And that's, for me, it's a problem with the world today too, is that we see evil out there and we want to fix it. We want it to be fixed, but we don't want to start with the evil that lodges within us.
Yeah. Well, and that's where it starts, right? It starts with us, and I think a lot of things too as well. We forget, because I've been keeping this tied to the big story, right? We are the first sermon you did. You talked about God created a good world, right? And then there was the fall. So we have to remember what God is doing here. He is not abandoning the world. He's preserving His promise.
Yes.
And His promise from Genesis 3:15 was that after Eden, a rescuer would come to save the world. So if He allows humanity to continue to do what they do, the rescue promise ends, and the redemption story stops, and then that's not what He's doing. It's a preservation process.
And I think that's where judgment is important, because judgment's not rage. And I think we see judgment is rage. I think but it is not rage. It is God taking evil seriously.
Yes.
And dealing with it. If God never confronts evil, or if God never confronts what dehumanizes, what wounds, what corrupts, love becomes indifferent. Like He's indifferent to what's going on.
Let's even break it down even smaller. Let's take God out of the picture, right? Let's take all these big words we're talking about, theological thoughts and things. Your own kids.
Sure.
If you give your kids things that this is what we do, this is what we don't do, right? And your kids go and do the things that they're not supposed to, and you don't discipline them, what happens there?
Well, they just keep perpetrating the disobedience or whatever that is.
Exactly. Yeah. So in a lot of ways, like, God is in the same way, and I'll bring it back up to God's level, right? God He's a God of wisdom. He's a wise God. In doing so, that even through Him being a just God, that there has to be consequence for sin, right?
Yeah,
that has to be paid, which is ultimately why Jesus died on the cross, to appease that, right? And then He's a God of mercy. So I love those three things. God is a wise God, He's a God of mercy, God of judgment. And all three of these we see happening here in the story of Noah and the flood.
And I think all three of those things combined, I just started this, I think those three things combined equals this very important word that you said before, preservation.
It's all about preservation.
That's how He preserves what He had created.
The Old Testament is about preserving, right? Preserving for what's to come, because what's to come is even the flood wasn't the final. Even which we'll talk in the next podcast, Abraham.
Sure.
We'll get there. But God is keeping His promise, and in doing so, He is judging the world.
Yeah. I like that, and but then it goes to the next question for me. I think, why Noah instead of starting from scratch? Why Noah?
Well, to me, Noah represents grace. Noah doesn't represent himself as a perfect person. He represents God's grace in the story.
Okay.
Right? Genesis 6:8 says what? That Noah found favor.
But why didn't he just go find another piece of mud and just build another guy?
Well, I think it comes down to, because just like I'll go back to the kids.
Like flood the whole thing up and then wait to dry up a little bit, got some mud. It's like, let me create another guy.
No, man. Then he'll be like setting the table, setting the deck. Like, he don't want to do that. He's showing. So here's the idea, and this I think is important. Like, God isn't saving perfect people.
No.
He's preserving His perfect plan through imperfect people.
Yes.
Right, and
I think Abraham's kind of, we can be good.
Yeah. We'll get there.
We'll get there, but go ahead.
So in the flood itself, we see judgment and mercy both happening at the same time. We see judgment, evil is confronted. Right, God doesn't just let it go, but then we see mercy, humanity being preserved, and that is through Noah. And the Bible says, Noah found favor. There's a reason why Noah found favor. Noah had to be doing something in his life. He wasn't perfect, but he had to be walking at least in some path that that he had learned from, and how to walk with God, right?
Sure.
Whereas people who are just completely turned away. Yeah. And you could think about that in your kid, I'm using kids again, but some kids just continuously just rebel. Then you have those kids, they rebel, they get spanked, and they kind of back online, right?
Yeah.
They kind of back there. I think so. He's not he's not cherry picking. He's just choosing what's out there to work within his realm.
And I think that God's choice in Noah is not a selection necessarily. I think it reveals something about God's character too. I think it reveals his commitment to his creation, that which he created, and even when it's broken, he still chooses his creation, and he wants to redeem it.
And that's my statement as I was writing and preparing for this one. I wrote, God judges what destroys us, and he preserves what can still be redeemed, right? And that still there is a hopeful thing, right? Because it's like, I'm going to judge because this is what it calls for. X costs X. Because of this, there's so many consequences that has to happen. But he's destroying. He judges what is destroying the people, but he's also preserving what can still be redeemed. And
which what you're saying gave me a thought here. Like, God is not abandoning his world, right? Even when it's broke, he's not abandoning it. He's like, he's preserving it. He preserves. I thought about this just now. He always preserves a remnant.
Yeah.
He never preserves everybody. He only preserves a remnant. I don't know why that is. And you're saying that it's something that is very important. God doesn't save Noah because he's perfect, because he wants to protect his promise. He wants his promise to be fulfilled, which is something you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
He chooses to keep his promises alive. And I think so many of us, when we see Noah or Abraham and all these characters in the Bible, that it seems like God is selecting these individuals. This is not.
But
it is a promise thing.
Going back to the promising, how many of us abandon our promises because it gets messy?
Oh yeah, it broke.
Yeah.
We do another promise.
Yeah.
Right?
God doesn't abandon the promise because it got messy and the world is continually thinking of evil. He finds a way to preserve and to refocus us, and I think that's what the ark is really about. It's more than a boat for us.
You said what did you say just now? I wrote like I forgot. You just said it because I was thinking like I like the word refine. I think the ark is like a refining moment. That's what I see it.
Yeah.
The flood's not like this cosmic reset button, in my opinion. It is a refining moment. It is God like just instead of erasing humanity, he preserves hope within humanity itself, which is what you're kind of saying there. Yeah. So for me, it's a refining moment, and refining moments are never fun. You always lose something, and something has to be
burned off in order for something new to grow.
So it tells us something important. God's solution to humanity's sin is not annihilation, it's redemption, it's restoration. And for you to be restored and redeemed and transformed, you need to be refined. And refining always removes stuff from you.
Yeah. And that's why I really like as we're going to kind of focus on the ark now, talking about that as we kind of move down here, because we don't want this to be an hour long, because we can easily be here an hour.
Forever, yeah.
But what does the ark really mean? Was it just a boat for people to get in? Well, I think there's more to it. What is it? It's
not like a transportation. I thought that the boat, the is the first form of transportation. No, but think about that. Right? There was no boogies, no wheel at this time. Not that we can read. I mean, it doesn't say none of that. Yeah. But it does give the first mode of transportation. I was reading about that as we were researching for this. This theologian was talking about how this is like actually is advanced technology in a very primitive world. It is one of the first form of technology that we had, like a transportation. But it is not. It is not humanity escaping judgment. They couldn't escape judgment because the boat didn't.
I know it's very. We can go I know we don't have time to talk about all the elements of it, but the fact like why no one else got on the ark? Why not? Right? But we'll save that for a different day. But I'll move us along here. I think the ark represents protection, right?
Yeah.
That when God's judgment comes, where are you going to be protected?
Well, so give it this thought. The plane is still making jokes about the transportation. So the ark is not transporting you away from judgment. It's carrying you through judgment.
Through judgment, yes. The same way, which ultimately this all ends up to Jesus, right?
Sure.
That when the final judgment comes, right? Are you going to be in the ark? Jesus, in a sense, I'm using that as a term, right? Within that, or are you going to be outside of it, right? And here we see that. So that's what the ark represents. It didn't just save Noah from the war. It didn't just save his family. It pointed forward to that ultimate rescue, that ultimate judgment that is coming. And will you be under the ark of God?
And I like that because, I mean, I keep when I see stories like this, my mind goes like, I see like in a movie, like that's what I love about the Old Testament. Yeah. For me, myself, is that my imagination goes crazy about this, right? Like, think about this. They just got on the boat. Noah didn't steer the boat. He didn't navigate the storm. Did he? Like, they had one of those wheels or whatever that's called?
No, not that we know of. It doesn't say in the Bible.
It doesn't say, like, you know, he doesn't steer. He doesn't like, oh, that wave is coming. Turn left. And everybody's pulling the whatever, you know.
He had too much animals to feed, man. He had to worry about.
You know, he didn't navigate the storm. He didn't steer the boat anywhere. Do you know what he did? He walked inside of that thing and trusted.
Well, that's the other thing too, as well, is like, you know, who are we trusting, and what are the arcs that, and if
Jesus is the thing when it comes to Jesus being the, you know, weren't you that what you're saying earlier? Yeah. Like Jesus becomes then the ark for us.
He is the ark for us in a sense. He is our saving. He is our rescue.
Yeah, but when it comes to entering to Jesus, walking with Him, we want to steer up the boat. We want to navigate the storm, and it goes back to the disciples, right? Trying to navigate storms that they can't really navigate, and they're like, then they realize, oh, I gotta trust somebody else here. Jesus, wake up, boy! You know, we're needing you here. And so,
well, I think what you're hitting on is this word people don't like is trusting God, right?
Yeah.
Trusting God is a process. I always say that it's a process. It's not an overnight thing. It's not a singular event thing. It's an ongoing, lifelong process where you learn to trust God. You start off by, hey, I'm gonna trust Him. Oh, God came through. But the other thing I don't like too is you don't turn your trust away because He didn't, right? And there's a worship song that we've talked about with that. We'll leave that there. Just because it doesn't come out in the way you expect it to doesn't mean your trust should be faltering.
No.
You should still trust in God regardless, because God knows best. God knows more than we do, right? And He is continuing to work in us. So the ark is protection for us in judgment for the people at that time, as a way of rescue. And it's for us to trust in that provision. God is providing, just like Jesus has come and He's given us a way out. You know, and I think about the story, like we can read the story of Noah and think like, oh man, that was a story for ages ago, but it's so relevant today.
Oh, yes.
It's so relevant. Our world still wrestles with violence. Our world still wrestles with corruption, with brokenness. And God is still confronting evil. Just like He did back then, He's still doing it.
Yes.
And He still offers a rescue. Yeah. Jesus still has His hand out, right? And the challenge is going to come the day that His hand isn't there anymore, because, well, it's that time.
The prophet says, watch out for the day, even Samuel, right? Watch out for the day that you look for God and He's no longer there. Be careful. You know, and you're talking about it's, you know, the ark the story is an invitation for us to trust.
Yes.
You know, trust that which God has provided for us to protect us, to carry us through judgment, and for that is Jesus. But there is one thing about the ark that the ark doesn't do, that Jesus does. The ark doesn't fix the human heart, right? The evil that is in there, but Jesus does address that, and I think that's the problem that God is trying to address mostly throughout the whole Old Testament, is that He's trying to reveal the heart of man and trying to fix the heart of man, and that can only be fixed not through law, not through flood, not through blessings, but through restoration of the heart, which is only can be done through the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, and I think that's
which tells me that the flood here is not the final solution.
No, it isn't, and I think that's why I think this is a good kind of segue as we kind of wrap this up. I think some things for us to think about as we reflect on this story, even go back and read, is like, why are we struggling more with God's judgment than the evil that's happening? Like, you know, like I mean, it's a valid question. I feel like we fight more for things that that it should be, it's backwards. Like the question should be, why is there so much evil? How can we help? How can we work through that?
Because evil has to do with us, not
Yes.
to do with God, and
Well,
so and
if
I
you-
think
if
that's
you-
why
if
we're
you-
so.
If you have to confront yourself, it's not a good thing, right?
Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to confront yourself. Nobody wants to look within and
Yeah. So I think to answer the overarching question which we asked in this episode to begin is why didn't God just start over? Right? Because he didn't start over completely for me is because his plan was never about destruction.
no.
It's about this what we've been talking about, preservation. It's about redemption, right? And the ark shows us that even in judgment, God is still preparing a rescue. So I think that you said it earlier, be careful of the day when judgment comes and there's no more rescue, because the rescue is he's already came. It's available and open to us. So that's why I love that this thing is titled From Genesis to Jesus, because we help show all these stories, how they connect directly to him. That's why I think that's why God it was never about destruction.
And I think we're on the same page there. I think it was never God's intent to start over with us.
No.
It was his intent to restore with us.
But even that right there, how amazing is that, to know that no matter how difficult you get, how far off the beaten path you go, God is not gonna abandon you.
Not gonna raise.
Not gonna
put
be
you
like,
in
you
a
know
corner,
what, he's
not
too
gonna
far gone.
reject you.
I actually just say, and I kind of convicted because there's a lot of times we kind of do that, right? We say, hey, you know what? Because I don't like the decisions that you're making, I am done. I am washing my hands of this. Man, thank Jesus that God does not wash his hands of humanity.
It demonstrates how God sees us, not as disposable individuals, not as a disposable creation, not as a replaceable one, but worth rescuing. It doesn't matter the cost. It doesn't matter how it costs. He will restore. And I think that's so important for us because Jesus doesn't only restore for the here and now. He restores life eternally. And this is why the flood story is not just about a destruction, it's about hope. It's about God dealing with evil, but most important about God preserving us.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful that God chose to preserve than to reject and destroy, because I'll be destroyed a long time ago.
Yeah, I'm grateful for that too in my life. So the question is that God is providing rescue. Have we entered it?
Well, that's a good one. And if we do enter, are we trusting that he would take us to the next point, or are we starting to stirring it up or lacking trusting in him? So, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I think we did good here.
I think so. I guess we'll see. Well, hey, as always, it's been a pleasure to be on here chatting and talking about God's word. Our prayer and our hope is that this is something that you would be able to draw hope from, be encouragement from, and also just to learn a little bit more about what God is doing and how he's doing it.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in.
Yep. Be blessed.
Be blessed.